Even though the third Doctor Strange movie still doesn't have a release date or even a proper announcement from Marvel, that doesn't mean the studio has no long-term plans for Stephen Strange. If anything, the way the current phase of the MCU is shaping up basically guarantees that a threequel is coming. It's not just about the character's popularity, it's about the role he plays in Marvel's entire multiverse setup. The ending of Multiverse of Madness made it pretty clear that Benedict Cumberbatch's Strange isn't going anywhere. If anything, all signs point to him taking a major role in Avengers Secret Wars. He's one of the strongest characters Marvel has, with powers that let the story go literally anywhere. There's no universe where Marvel can ignore him in the future. At this point, the question isn't if we're getting Doctor Strange 3, it's when. Right now, the most realistic expectation is that Marvel will finish the whole Secret Wars arc first, wrap up the Doom storyline, close out the multiversal conflict, and only then switch gears to a full Strange threequel. That alone pushes the release window past 2028. Anything earlier is extremely unlikely. Now back to the moment this whole conversation started. The finale of Multiverse of Madness introduced Clea, played by Charlize Theron. Her sudden appearance was one of the movie's biggest surprises. She shows up to warn Strange that the multiversal damage isn't over, and there are still major problems ahead. Charlize hasn't commented on her future in the MCU, and Marvel is keeping quiet too. But in the comics, Clea is a major force in the magic side of Marvel, with huge power and a deep connection to Strange. Their team-ups in a future movie or the big crossovers feel almost inevitable. And honestly, fans are dying to see what kind of chemistry Cumberbatch and Theron bring to the screen together. As for who might direct Doctor Strange 3, that's still a mystery. And that's not surprising, considering how difficult the second film's development was. Multiverse of Madness went through some serious creative clashes. It was originally pitched as a far more horror-driven story, even marketed as Marvel's first true scary movie. The main villain was supposed to be Nightmare, one of Strange's classic foes. Wanda was only meant to show up in the third act to team up with Strange and take down Nightmare. That original vision collapsed during development. Scott Derrickson, who directed the first film, left over creative differences with Marvel. Sam Raimi took over, and the script got rewritten by Loki's Michael Waldron. In the end, the horror elements survived only in small pieces, and the final movie was very different from what Derrickson had planned. According to insiders, his early draft was darker and leaned way harder into pure horror. Looking back at Doctor Strange's journey in the MCU, it's pretty clear that Marvel has been quietly building the foundation for his next big arc. The first movie introduced the Dark Dimension and Dormammu, but Strange only brushed up against that power. Multiverse of Madness pushed things a lot further. It hammered home the cost of using magic, and that final moment with the third eye was a very loud signal that Stephen just stepped into something far more dangerous. In the comics, the third eye is tied to the Eye of Agamotto, a symbol of cosmic knowledge that lets you see through illusions, magic, even souls. But in the MCU, it's clearly tied to corruption from the Darkhold, the same force Wanda spent an entire movie fighting. If Strange really carries a piece of that forbidden knowledge inside him, then a threequel is the perfect moment to finally explore what that kind of magic actually costs. And that's where Clea comes in. Charlize Theron showing up in that post-credit scene wasn't just a flashy cameo, it was Marvel basically pointing at the next chapter. In the comics, Clea is Dormammu's niece, one of the most powerful sorcerers in the Dark Dimension, and Strange's future partner who eventually becomes the Sorcerer Supreme of Earth. Her debut is a straight-up doorway into a new storyline where the Dark Dimension isn't just a backdrop anymore, it becomes the main stage. So what could Doctor Strange 3 even look like? The most natural direction is deeper exploration of Stephen's connection to the Dark Dimension. Clea isn't just an ally, she's a guide, and there's a real chance Dormammu comes back, but this time with a more personal conflict than that time loop from the first movie. The third eye could easily become the center of the drama. A slow loss of control, growing dependence on forbidden power, a character arc that kind of mirrors Tony Stark, whose own inventions kept dragging him into new crises. If Strange ends up fighting not just an outside threat, but also a creeping corruption inside himself, Marvel could use that to build emotional momentum leading into Secret Wars. Imagine a hero the Avengers don't fully trust anymore, but who's still the only one able to navigate the multiversal chaos. Producer Richie Palmer and writer Michael Waldron have already hinted that Strange's importance is only going to grow. Waldron straight up said Stephen might become the anchor of this new multiverse era, the same way Tony Stark was the backbone of the Infinity Saga, and Benedict Cumberbatch talking about sticking with the role long term only reinforces the idea. Steven's arc has been incredibly consistent. He started as a man obsessed with control, perfect hands, perfect results, absolute precision. The first movie shattered that ego and replaced it with responsibility. But responsibility comes with a debt he's been avoiding ever since. Every spell has a price. Multiverse of Madness shifted the focus from responsibility to consequences. Now Strange is the guy who broke something much bigger than he expected, and he's the one who has to fix it. If Marvel wants a character who can tie the magic side of the universe to the big multiversal conflicts, Strange is perfect for that job. And the threequel could be the point where his personal storyline locks into the studio's bigger direction. Structurally, it could look something like this. The first act starts with the illusion of stability. Strange is back in New York. The amulet is just a relic now without the time stone. Wong is still the Sorcerer Supreme. America Chavez is training in Kamar Taj, but the third eye is a constant reminder that the fabric of magic is damaged. Strange sees weird geometric distortions at the edge of his vision. He hears whispers from something that doesn't belong in our world. He can ignore these signs or use them, and Steven always chooses the tool that solves the problem right now, even if it blows up tomorrow. And then everything builds toward the final stretch. Strange and Clea head straight into the heart of the dark dimension to stop a full rupture between worlds. The only way to seal the boundaries is to use the Faultine energy, that primordial fire Dormammu commands. To channel it safely, Strange has to stop treating the third eye like a weapon and start treating it like a state of acceptance, a kind of higher awareness that doesn't try to force an outcome. He lets go of control for the first time and actually trusts his team. Wong holds Kamar Taj together. America stabilizes the edges of the tear. Clea doesn't chase a truce. She fights for her dimension's right to exist without the shadow of its past. If I'm talking purely as a fan, my biggest wish for Doctor Strange 3 is simple. I want Marvel to finally close the Dormammu storyline. This guy is one of the most powerful threats in the entire Marvel universe, and yet he's been basically collecting dust in the MCU for almost a decade. Think about it. Doctor Strange hit theaters back in 2016. We're now stepping into 2026, and Dormammu hasn't had a single real appearance since that time loop bargain. No development, no build-up, nothing. Compare that to how Marvel handled Thanos. He popped up at the tail end of the first Avengers, and from there they slowly teased, built, and escalated him over just 7 years before Infinity War and Endgame paid everything off. Dormammu? A whole decade later, and he's basically a footnote. The only recent mention came in Ironheart, where Sacha Baron Cohen's Mephisto drops Dormammu's name in a throwaway line during one of the most painfully awkward, low-budget scenes Marvel has ever put out. Honestly, that entire debut felt like a joke. And the way Mephisto dismisses Dormammu there, either they were trying to hype Mephisto up, or Marvel genuinely has no idea what to do with their supernatural villains. And considering the chaos going on behind the scenes, characters being forgotten, teased, or introduced only to never show up again, I'm leaning toward the second option. They're juggling so many new heroes that even the established ones get lost in the noise. That's why personally, I'd love Doctor Strange 3 to bring the Dormammu arc full circle. But realistically, I'm not holding my breath. Odds are high that Marvel pushes Mephisto as the main villain instead. They've got Sacha Baron Cohen locked in, and it wouldn't surprise me at all if they retcon things so that Mephisto, not Dormammu, has been pulling the strings from day one. The Dark Dimension, corrupted by him. The Darkhold, empowered by him. The demons and magical fallout across the MCU, his influence. And honestly, they could get away with it. It's an easy rewrite. But my dream version of Doctor Strange 3 leans all the way into the supernatural corner of Marvel, the side they've been scared to explore. If there's ever a moment to build toward the Midnight Suns, it's right after Secret Wars. Blade needs a real place in the MCU. Ghost Rider is begging to be introduced. Ryan Gosling literally said multiple times he wants the role. Marvel is running out of fresh avenues. The Eternals fizzled out, Fantastic Four is a giant question mark, the Illuminati cameo came and went. The X-Men reboot is a complete mess, with half the cast returning and half being recast. So who's left to carry a full new saga? The supernatural side. That's where Strange fits perfectly. He could be the bridge into a darker, weirder Marvel, teaming up with Blade, Brother Voodoo, Moon Knight, Ghost Rider, all of them. A proper Midnight Suns roster, something that finally shakes things up instead of repeating cosmic threats again and again. And honestly, that might be exactly what Marvel needs. A new style of storytelling after Secret Wars burns everything down. So far, that's everything we realistically know, and everything a lot of fans are hoping Doctor Strange 3 could become. If Marvel is smart, they'll stop sidelining Strange and start building him into the center of their supernatural future, because if they don't, then what's left?